Welcome to Ashley On, your one-stop podcast where we talk about health and wellness, spirituality, and all things new. Stick around as we delve deep into innovations to support a better world.
Hello, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today. Today, we're honored to welcome Leigh Taylor-Young, an Emmy Award-winning actress whose remarkable journey spans Hollywood stardom, profound spiritual exploration, and impactful humanitarian work. From her breakout roles in Peyton Place and films alongside icons like Peter Sellers, to her courageous decision to step away from fame in pursuit of deeper meaning, Leigh's life is a testament to authenticity and inner peace. Her spiritual quest has taken her from the Red Rocks of Santa Fe to the Himalayas, and her work with organizations like the Institute for Individual and World Peace, Educare, and now with the Movement for Spiritual Inner Awareness, reflects on her commitment to empowering others. Join us as we dive deep into her inspiring story of purpose, love, and a true sense of home. Hope you enjoy the show. Thank you. If you're looking to improve your memory or lower your stress and inflammation, you got to hear about our new sponsor, Igniton. Igniton is the world's first quantum wellness brand, merging ancient energetics with cutting-edge physics. And this stuff really works. It's clinically proven. We'll talk about that in a second. Their formulas are charged with something called ignitons. They're subatomic quasi-particles from the sun and originally identified in private research at CERN. This is heavy physics. Igniton's space-age technology entangles these particles with supplement ingredients to supercharge them and make them work better. Here's what makes this really exciting. In university-led, peer-reviewed studies, Ignicognition, Igniton's flagship brain formula, was shown to improve total memory by 100% in just 30 days. That includes short-term, operational, and working memory. It's crazy. The Igni longevity formula, their cellular stress and aging formulation, reduced inflammation markers like C-reactive protein, or CRP, and interleukin-6, or IL-6, by 37% and 54% respectively in just 60 days. Huge impact. These studies were compared to both placebo and to the same supplement ingredients that were not charged with ignitons. This isn't hype. It's clinical, quantum-enhanced nutrition designed to help your body align with higher levels of clarity, coherence, and resilience. I've been using both formulations now for about 60 days, and seriously, I've never felt better. Sharper, I have more energy, I recover faster from my workouts, I don't get that afternoon swoon, and I'm even sleeping through the night, every night. Visit igniton.com and use code Ashley10 to get 10% off your first order. That's igniton.com, igniton.com. And the code is Ashley10 for 10% off your first order. Igniton, born from light, backed by science. Good morning, Leigh Taylor-Young. Nice to see you again. Thank you so much for being on the show.
It's wonderful to see you, Ashley. Thank you. We had a fun morning getting together.
Yes, we have. Well, that's good. I'm glad to see you now, and thank you for your patience in getting this put together this morning.
And me too. Thank you. Okay, here we are.
Yeah, here we are. It's great to see you again. I'm excited to talk to you and learn more about your remarkable life. I mean, from acting to spiritual exploration and humanitarian work, lots of great experiences in your life, and I'd love to learn more. But I'd love to just start by understanding what initially drew you to acting, and and how is that passion for performance really intertwined with your spiritual journey?
Oh, that's a great question. Especially your words, passion for performance, because ironically, well, it's often the case with artists. I was very introverted as a child, and in my teen
Really?
years, very, very introverted. But the one thing that my mother started me on at age 4 with great consistency and dedication, since I couldn't drive, she would take me to dance class about 4 times a week, ballet. And I loved it. I loved the discipline. I loved the music. I loved movement. I had a lot of energy. So, and then when I was 13, my parents took me to New York City and I saw my first Broadway play, which was a musical. And I just thought, it was like Paul going to Damascus. It was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do, which was expression, which didn't come to me so easily, as a natural thing to be in front of people and to express. Just wasn't the draw. But when I saw the music and the joy, and because I understood the discipline of dance so well, it was a convergent moment. So I ended up at Northwestern University. My father's hopes would be, by making sure I majored in economics, that this would be the antidote to my absolute lack of interest or understanding of how money worked. And he hoped that this would be the answer. Well, within the first quarter, a young lady who had become my friend, for which I was enormously excited that I had a friend, she was in the theater school, which was a famous school, I later found out, the theater school at Northwestern. And she invited me to come to the class, and then we would go to lunch together. She said, just walk into the theater in the dark, just sit there, and you'll see the class. I walked in the dark, sat down, and it was another moment where I watched this, who I later realized was a very famous acting teacher at Northwestern, Alvina Krause. She was about 5'2" and an absolute terror. She was in her 70s. The only thing she was missing was a stick. But she was a revelation in how the actors would do a scene. She'd stop them, she'd talk to them, but what she would say and then what they would do, that became so much more alive and so much more. So it was like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. I want to be an actress, because I realized that I could speak through a character. I could, in a way, it was, I guess, kind of predictable that I could find such a wonderful way to be safe in a legal expression in a play behind a character. So I went the next day without telling my parents, changed my major to theater, and then just started hanging out with everybody in the theater school, auditioning for plays. Met my first mentor there, who became a genuine mentor in theater to me, introduced me to Sir John Gielgud, more Shakespeare, worked with my voice, which was very Midwestern. He said, that's a no-no. We have got to change the way you talk. All your vowels are squished. So I would say things like, I can get you something. And he'd say, it's can get, open up the throat. And he remains a close friend to this day, well into his 80s. But at any rate, it set me on that path. And within 4 years from that epiphany, I was on Broadway. So my intention was so lit up, so fierce. And I had so much discipline because of ballet. Ballet is a very, very disciplined art form. And I loved it. I loved that discipline. So it was in my nature. I had a military father who expressed his fatherhood with a certain tonality of the military. So I was kind of familiar to the dedication that theater would take to to achieving my goal, which from a Midwestern town in Detroit, it was like very far away. But I got into a school in New York, and that's all I dedicated myself to. And I got that. And then within a few months, I was in California, and by serendipity ended up as one of the leads in Peyton Place. And then it just took off from there.
Well, you had such rapid success. It had to be just a whirlwind. I'm interested in just like what was the transformation like for you from that, going from a small Midwestern girl who, now all of a sudden was seemingly had it all in terms of fame and being an actress and all of that
I
great
I
experience.
did not have that measurement in me of, oh, I'm famous, or, oh, I'm successful. I just loved to work. I loved to do the work. That was my focus. The excitement in a new character, the excitement of having responsibility, the excitement of stepping up to the challenge. That was where my focus was. I didn't do a lot of evaluating that, oh, now I was this or now I was that. I really didn't see through that lens easily. I mean, never in my life have I done that. That's, you could either say it was a great value or a weakness. I don't know. But
Hmm.
I could never patting myself on the back and saying, you've done this, this, or this. Every once in a while, when I look at my curriculum vitae, I go, really? Because it's so big. All
Hmm.
the jobs, all the different, I've always had an inner North Star. That's also been a big part of it all. I kind of listen, and if I get it, I go and I give it my all.
Well, it's interesting. There's because I want to get into, because you've spoken before about the emptiness that you felt, at that time when you walked away from Hollywood. There's a current sports story going on. A golfer named Scotty Scheffler. I don't know if you're aware of who he is,
Oh,
but
very. In fact, if I look too carefully to the right, I'll see him on the big screen over in the corner.
okay, yeah, he's should be winning right now, I think.
He is.
Um, I don't know if you've heard of the story this week about what he said, but it reminded me of you, and I wanted to get your opinion on this. But he said something about being unfulfilled in, he's a three-time major champion, and he's the number one golfer in the world, and but he was talking about how that doesn't make him happy, and he was interviewed quite extensively about it, and he was talking about really focusing on his family. That's where he finds his joy. But it made me think of you and your story about the emptiness that you spoke about, and you walked away from Hollywood and really started a different life, going to Santa Fe. I just wonder if you have anything to share on that, given the relevance of what he's saying.
I I would consider with Scotty that there's another call in him that's
Hmm.
asking him to look more deeply. Because I think when we do have that fulfillment and satisfaction, we're on point. We're on point with our life. That's why the satisfaction is there. We're in alignment with our goals, with our heart. That's all. If he's not satisfied, then his heart, soul may be calling him to either appreciate more deeply family, or to extend his vision about who and what he might be and who and what he might do. For me, I so loved my work in film, but what really it wasn't like it was empty. It was more like I really was developing a stronger call to another path that made me staying in this path not fulfilling because there was another call. And there really was another call. And I had been in my parallel life with my acting, had always been a seeker ever since I was a little girl. It was a through line in my life to, I wanted to learn. I wanted to not know out of ego, but I wanted to know something that matched up deeply inside myself. I was a prolific all my life since I was 3, a prolific reader. I loved books. I loved words. I knew those words had mysteries for me, even if I didn't understand them yet. I wanted to learn to read. Uh, I never had any interest in mathematics or hard science. I just didn't. My interest was history, biographies, people's lives, the mystery of being alive, nature. Um, Fortunately, I had a grandfather who was a farmer and was very attuned, and he was also a professor. So he was very attuned to my nature. So he fulfilled me greatly. He would homeschool me parallel to my schooling, so that this sort of avaricious curiosity and enthusiastic interest could be tapped, and like feeding a bird, you know, he would do things like give me, I was such a good reader, he would give me the Greeks and the Romans and have me read it. And then at night, after everybody'd gone to bed, we'd meet in the living room and he would Socratically ask me questions that would guide my understanding of things. When I was 13 from India, he brought me Autobiography of a Yogi, and he had met Yogananda. And my grandfather also was a minister. And he gave me this book, and I just devoured it. And for the first time, here was someone talking about experiences that I was having. I was having mystical experiences, didn't know it. I could hear things other people didn't seem to hear. I never did much speaking about it, except with my grandfather. And then he gave me this, and I went, I'm not that weird. And so that really set my course as a parallel course to anything artistic that I would pursue. Was always this parallel course to read, uh, if not books like Autobiography Yogi, to read things like Kazantzakis, uh, or Teilhard de Chardin, things that were, for my young mind, very fulfilling to read and were affirmative.
Yeah, in reading about you, I did pick up on the fact that your grandfather was a very influential part of your life. Is that, is that where you really got your motivation for spirit and to really seek God within?
I honestly think that was already alive in me. Uh, I loved to be alone. I was not social. I didn't go, oh, I want to go hang with a girlfriend or kids. I really didn't know how to do that. I felt so awkward. My happy place was in my room with a book. I loved archaeology very young, the mysteries of the ancient past, Egypt. I mean, when I was 10 years old, I was into Egypt. When I was 11, I found a book on, believe it or not, Akhenaten, a little thin book in the middle school library. And I just devoured that book because I think I had a resonance with that lifetime, was probably why it was so lit up. But no, I think I came in with this, and my grandfather was there as a guiding light
Mm-hmm.
to help me develop skills that would lead me more confidently forward.
I was going to say, give you that confidence to keep
Yeah.
going with that path, right?
Yeah. And my husband can attest to this day. You come into the bedroom, I probably have 10 books around my feet. I even have a girlfriend who I had, a lovely actress, Leslie Ann Warren, a very dear friend for 50 years. We were having lunch the other day. She said, do you still like books? I said, more than ever. She said, I just remember visiting you in your bedroom, and you'd think it should be a bedroom, but books were everywhere. It looked like you were reading all of them. I mean, I I I have a detective thing inside too, that, like, right now I'm on the prophets. I get an urge for something, and then I just have to follow it. Questions in my mind like, what does it mean to be the chosen people? Where did that start? Where did the 12 tribes start? Where did the first covenant with God start for Israel? And now I'm on to the prophets in the Old Testament. It started there, and now I'm into Jeremiah and the other prophets. And I can't tell you that it has a goal, but it's very satisfying. It's answering something.
What I know you're in the middle of this exploration with the prophets, but share with us, what have you learned so far? What's the most fascinating thing you've learned about them in your
Well,
learnings yet?
I would say a great respect for their courage, because they carried a consciousness that was elevated in the times in which they lived. It was elevated an understanding far beyond the pagan religions that also were still in the land, and pagan mentality. And Jeremiah is just about my favorite because his courage to tell the truth no matter what. He warned at great cost to his life constantly, because he was taking on the priesthood, he was taking on the king, he was taking on the powers that be. He was taking on his version of ICE and saying, this is wrong. You are breaking your covenant with God to love God, to honor God. You have idols, you're corrupt. And if you keep it up, he was basically saying, you're going to get the karma of this because you made an agreement with God. You made a covenant and you're breaking it. It's like when you don't keep your word and you say you will, and then you don't. It's an itty bitty form of that. It's got a karmic field to it. You said you would, and then you don't. And so to him, Israel was breaking its word with God. And he found it to be very serious because he knew in his visions that Babylon was lurking along the edges, and that if Israel didn't reinstate its loyalty to spirit and to God, it was going to pay the price, and it did. He warned and warned and warned for a long time. And then Babylon came in, tore down the temple, Solomon's temple, took all that was inside, and then took the people. And it was a big pay, but they didn't listen. And Jesus himself sat and looked at the gates of Jerusalem and cried, wept, said, you're doing it again. Because that covenant was serious. But I think what Jesus did that was so amazing is he absorbed the karma of it all. And he offered a new covenant that was not the Mosaic covenant of an eye for an eye, the law. He was offering the covenant of grace, that all
And forgiveness.
All is forgiven. And he paid for it with his life as the sacrifice. Instead of a lamb in the temple, he was the Lamb of God and gave his life to pay all of that. So where all that line is now, I wouldn't know. I don't particularly like what Israel's doing.
I started to say, do you think it's happening again?
Well,
It seems like it is.
if Jesus had not come with grace, I would say, yes, they're doing it again, but I don't have enough knowledge to know if the karmic price is there, because Jesus paid it past and he paid it forward.
Right.
And that means everybody. So I don't know. But if it were still under the law of Moses, I would think there will be a price, but I don't know. I just personally don't like genocide.
Yeah. I don't think any of us
No.
really do if you have a heart.
Yeah.
Well, I get back to your experiences. In researching your background and your life, I came across something where you described a mystical experience with Muktananda. Am I saying that correctly?
No,
You described it as a moment of infinite joy that really helped you feel God within. I just wonder if you could expand on that experience for our audience and
sure.
talk about how that has influenced your life.
Well, I had I have to go back a bit, input in my consciousness as a young girl of India, because my grandfather was one of the heads of the Ford Foundation in India. So this great man in my life went to India to do this job, which I missed him tremendously. And he always would bring back this fragrance of India, not just a physical fragrance, but this sensibility of the fact that in India, at that time, God was out of the closet. Everything is God there. They talk about God in relationship to everything. Of course, they have this ancient caste system, which didn't sound right to me, but I didn't know, but I loved the things he would bring and the things he would say, and then Autobiography of a Yogi enhanced it. So I had already this welcome inside towards the Eastern religion, even Eastern wisdom. I would say wisdom. That's what I loved. So as I got into my early, closer to mid-20s, I started seeking that path. And I still loved Yogananda very much. Immersed myself in hatha yoga, physical yoga, and all the dietary things that went with that became fascinating to me. So very early on, I chose an alternative health path as well, with great dedication and wanting to learn about that with the same interest. And then I became very close friends with Ravi Shankar. He was, our generation today may not even know who he is, but one of the greatest musicians in the world ever with the sitar. And that evoked India. And then Peter Sellers was a very close friend of mine, and he sent me to his guru in India. And so I took that journey to India, and I went and stayed in an ashram in the Himalayas and wanted to study Vedanta, which I did there, and then came back to LA. Within 2 weeks, I saw a sign in a health food store that said Muktananda, who I'd heard about in India. And he sounded scary, like he hit people with peacock feathers and carried a stick sometimes, but that he was a truly great, what they call Siddha yoga guru. Siddha implies special powers that your spirituality has given you. And indeed, he had quite the reputation. So I see this little sign, Baba Muktananda in LA at this man's apartment. I knew this man because he often had satsang gatherings at his apartment. I'd been there for Yogananda people, and please come and meet Muktananda. So I was sitting outside that door in the hallway an hour early. I felt so called. And the night before, I'd gone to Self-Realization Fellowship, where their chapel is open all night if you want to meditate. I just meditated all night. I wanted a guru. I understood that relationship because of my grandfather.
Mhm.
Guru, dispeller of darkness, Gupam and Rupam. That's what guru means, the one who dispels darkness. And I loved having a mentor. And so I hope this was it. Door opened, and the teacher who had taught me in India at the ashram a month earlier opened the door. And he was so shocked to see me. He grabbed me by my hair, just going on and off in Hindi, carries me and throws me at the foot of Baba because I was early and he was sitting there early with nobody in the room, talking to him. And then I was a student, and Baba hit me with some peacock feathers, and he looked at me, and there's something they call the twaji, and the twaji is the face of God, the look of God. And a good master carries the twaji. Their consciousness of divinity is empowered in their look. And sometimes they can look at you, and your consciousness, without even touching you, can start to transform. And he looked at me and he said, I want you at the retreat this week, in Hindi, of course, translated. And I said, I'll be there. And I went to the retreat first night, coming before Baba. And I didn't want to bow. Everybody was bowing. I just wasn't ready to bow. But I got on my knees and I held my hands and I looked at him, and he looked at me, a look I'll never forget, searing love. And I just fell over like a log. They dragged me to the side, left me there until dark. I came to, and in that moment, I had that experience where I was traveling realms of light, realms of love, and that all there was love. That's all there was. That's all. That's how I got stamped in how I viewed that experience. And so I was there for the retreat that week, and it was transformative, to say the least. And the thing with
Wow.
peacock feathers, he'd walk around at meditation at 5 in the morning, and And it was his way of communicating what they call Shakti. It's an energy, and it's electric. And when people would be hit by it, they would go into kriyas. I don't know if you're familiar with kriyas, but it's where all the nervous system, that they call them nadis, they're the nerves, they all light up with spirit, and your body starts to transform. And you might do very strange things like hop around the room with your legs crossed and not even know how you levitated. I mean, really kind of phenomenal things.
Hmm.
But joy, laughter, and the divine.
Wow. So how did this, you don't often, or most people don't, or at least I don't, think of Hollywood as a very godly place. How did this, how did you fit in there? What were there other people? You mentioned Peter Sellers, so there had to be other folks that were of a similar mindset. But how did that all feel with the friends and coworkers and collaborators that you had there?
Um, I don't really remember, other than I still worked. I still had that respect for work, for being a working person. I also had a child. So, I just brought it with me. At one point, there was something that occurred to me, which was I realized, because you have so many realizations about reality when your reality starts being transformed, your view of many things. Thus, it's a good question. And what I came to was, for so long, I realized that I had looked for the business to give me something that I wanted to receive. And what I went back into it with is I wanted to give. I wanted to give something. My consciousness, even if I was working, wanted to give back. I was very aware of this change of dynamic. And it became so much more joyful for me to interrelate with people from a place of loving them, wanting to serve them. How could I serve the scene? How could I serve the director? That was a big change. And however, something was very seated. So when I met John Roger, who became it did not deny the value of anybody who'd gone before, but it was like, atomic meeting John Roger. It was like where something inside me said, I'm home. I'm really home. And those teachings of John Roger are as alive today and abundant and fruitful inside of me. And eventually, what happened when I had the pleasure of finding the love of my life later in life, who received the mantle of John Rogers' consciousness and teachings, and we came together as partners. We were on your show together a few weeks ago. I really no longer wanted to be in that business because I wanted to share in this work. So now it became where I wanted to place my creativity, everything that I am, in partnership, support, mostly support of my husband's work, because I saw it as, this makes the world a better place, really. Not that movies don't, they do. They bring what we need. They bring joy, they bring relief, they bring some kind of perfect distraction. The actual work, though, of working with spirit as a demonstration in some way, teaching even. And mostly my initial thing was I just wanted to support my husband. And now I'm sharing in the work more. I facilitate workshops. It's very rich.
So for those who are listeners who haven't heard the other episode yet, what Leigh is talking about is the movement for spiritual inner awareness. And John Roger is the founder,
Founder.
would you say?
Mhm.
Yeah.
John Morton is my husband, and he is the spiritual director of the movement of spiritual inner awareness. And what the teachings are is soul transcendence. Essentially, we come into this world with these layers, our minds, our emotions, our more basic nature, our unconscious, but we're souls. And we tend to go into forgetfulness that what we are is a soul having a human experience, not kind of the other way, remembering that you're a soul. But it's an awakening path. We're here to wake up. Who are we really? We're loving, we're joyful, and that's no matter what. That's an eternal place. And so the teachings are how more and more to live in that place in this world, so that washing the dishes, taking your kids to school, a crying baby, the things we see on the news, that we can sustain a consciousness of soul awareness and live from that place. And it doesn't mean that it's easy. But
Mhm.
for me, it's what else is there really to do but to wake up? That's the best thing to be doing.
Yeah, I saw it reminds me of a Chinese proverb or something I saw recently where it said, the wise man doesn't, I'm butchering this probably, but the wise man doesn't seek an easier path, he seeks stronger legs.
Yes. You don't want somebody to take it away and, take away the difficulty, that the difficulty is really something to use for upliftment and growth. And often, if we can get into the consciousness of blessing, how can we transform the experience as it's really a blessing? Give me the consciousness to see and experience the blessing of this. That's not so easy. It's transformation at
Mm.
its highest moment, but we as humans have complete capability to do this. It's
Yeah.
not like we're broken. We're not. We're opposite.
So I wonder, how did this, because a lot of our listeners may be raising children, mothers or fathers. How did, and your son Patrick was with you during your time in Santa Fe when you kind of left Hollywood, and how did this spiritual journey influence you as a mother uh, during that during your life?
Was just to do the best I could. I was a single mother, I was a working mother, and I was a seeking mother. And the nature which I seeked was pretty voracious. I went to retreats, I studied, I had gatherings in my home. So he was up close and personal with a very dedicated life, and a life that often when I'd go into a job would take me away. Then my job was to make sure he had a sustaining, loving presence to be my surrogate. I was juggling like if you think of a single mother, you're juggling all the jobs.
Yeah.
And all I could do was be honest with him. I mean, I transformed my clothes closet into a little meditation room, and I'd have him sit with me sometimes, and the phone would ring. And I'd say, honey, would you tell them I'll call them back? He'd go out. I remember, I'll never forget this. And somebody asked for me, and he said, I'm sorry she can't talk to you now. She's talking to God.
It's great.
But it's interesting that he has not chosen this. And I understood it pretty early on that this was not his calling, like it was mine. And I wanted to encourage him to follow his calling and also protect him the best I could from influences that were in his life that I were very concerned I didn't want them to, I don't know how to say this without it sounding as bad as it sounds, pollute him in his awareness of life as a negative, but to do my best to help him interpret the reality that he was in as positive a way possible. That was quite a task. But he's well on his journey, a beautiful journey. He's a very successful sportscaster. He has a beautiful wife and 2 beautiful daughters. And like every human, he's challenged in all of it, but it's a good life.
Yeah. So if you could go back, like knowing what you know now and through all your journeys, if you could go back to the 23-year-old star of Peyton Place, what would you say to her? What would be the one piece of advice?
I would be comforting. I would be soothing and saying, I was surrounded by a lot of negativity. I would just say, there's something so beautiful in this life. It's coming. You have it. You're safe. The outcome is magnificent. So just like you kept your eyes on the prize with acting, and you keep your eyes on the prize of God and love, and it's all going to be just fine.
Oh, that's great. I think that's great for everybody.
Mhm. I
Faith.
call it outrageous love. It takes outrageous love, not just loving, but to me, outrageous love is no matter what. I may not feel loving, but loving calls me. I want to transmute this moment into something kind, not reactive. And it's so easy in this world to react, to be reactive, to be judgmental, as if we know. Well, we really don't know. If we look back at history, there were great debacles in history, and they righted themselves in another cycle. So the world is cyclical. Life has cycles. Everything has cycles. But to just transmute what is negative to something positive, and I think that takes a lot of effort and a lot of willingness, a lot of courage, and a lot of love of loving more than anything else. That's the call.
So on that piece, kind of extending that thought, what would you, to any of our listeners who are maybe just starting their spiritual journey or just, just kind of awakening to this part of their soul and their life, what meditation or prayer technique would you recommend to someone that's just getting started?
Well, I'm a lover of the Christ energy. I respect and study and love so many of the greats. But that energy, the Christ consciousness, is the most powerful to me. And he said to his loved ones, he said, I'm leaving you. You will see me no more, but I'm going to leave you the Comforter, the Holy Spirit. And that is so filled with answers for you and wisdom for you. Call upon it. And that's what I call upon, is the Holy Spirit. So my prayer is, Father, Mother, God, I call myself forward into the light of the Holy Spirit. And I ask that for the highest good of myself and everyone, that I'm fully surrounded, blessed, and protected by the light of the Holy Spirit. And I offer that Holy Spirit into my life. And something like that. So the Holy Spirit for the highest good, because ego is a tricky character. We want to say for the highest good. So whatever we're asking for, placing into the light, isn't for anything but the highest good of everyone, because then it's karmically clear.
Great advice. I guess this has been really fantastic talking to you. I wonder, as we think about wrapping up, what legacy do you hope to leave now through your work? Because you've done so many wonderful things with acting and humanitarian and spirituality. Like what legacy would you like the audience to kind of take away from your life?
Joy. I just turned 80 in January, and I made a new intention, like a new little covenant with God, that I want to share joy, and I want to just allow that joy of the loving just overflow and share it. I think I love young people. I love being around babies, young people, all of it, that there's hope for the future in who we are. It's not necessarily everything we do or what our status is. It's, did we touch with joy and with loving? So that would be my legacy, I think. And honestly, this is just very personal. I really, really love my husband, and the legacy of supporting him and being a good partner and a loving friend and partner. That's part of my personal legacy, part of my demonstration of who I am.
I think that's great. Good for you, and God bless you. And
God bless you.
your website is LTY.com
Mm-hmm.
and MSIA.org is Movement of Spiritual Inner Awareness, correct?
Yes. And also another beautiful website is johnmortonministries.org, because his ministry is very big.
And that's Morton with an O-N, is that right?
MORTON Ministries.
JohnMortonMinistries.com or .org.
Or
.org.
That's
Yeah.
what I think.
Well, Leigh, thank you so much. I'd like you to hold on the line, and I'll pause our recording now, but hold
All
on,
right.
please, and we can wrap up. Thank you so much for joining
Love to
us, Leigh
everyone
Taylor-Young.
Thank you.
If you're looking to improve your memory or lower your stress and inflammation, you got to hear about our new sponsor, Igniton. Igniton is the world's first quantum wellness brand, merging ancient energetics with cutting-edge physics. And this stuff really works. It's clinically proven, and we'll talk about that in a second. Their formulas are charged with something called ignitons. They're subatomic quasi-particles from the sun and originally identified in private research at CERN. This is heavy physics. Igniton's space-age technology entangles these particles with supplement ingredients to supercharge them and make them work better. Here's what makes this really exciting. In university-led, peer-reviewed studies, Ignicognition, Igniton's flagship brain formula, was shown to improve total memory by 100% in just 30 days. That includes short-term, operational, and working memory. It's crazy. The Igni longevity formula, their cellular stress and aging formulation, reduced inflammation markers like C-reactive protein, or CRP, and interleukin-6, or IL-6, by 37% and 54% respectively in just 60 days. Huge impact. These studies were compared to both placebo and to the same supplement ingredients that were not charged with ignitons. This isn't hype. It's clinical, quantum-enhanced nutrition designed to help your body align with higher levels of clarity, coherence, and resilience. I've been using both formulations now for about 60 days, and seriously, I've never felt better. Sharper, I have more energy, I recover faster from my workouts, I don't get that afternoon swoon, and I'm even sleeping through the night, every night. Visit igniton.com and use code Ashley10 to get 10% off your first order. That's igniton.com, IGNITON.com. And the code is Ashley10 for 10% off your first order. Igniton, born from light, backed by science.
Thanks for listening to Ashley on Nothing But the Truth for a Better You and Me.